Okay, hatboro-horsham. We're going to talk a little about the E minor pentatonic scale and a way to approach it to get you moving down the fretboard that does not initially start with the patterns that are so confusing for you. You know, the classic pattern at E for an E minor pentatonic scale would be string 6 open, string 6 fret 3, string 5 open, string 5 fret 2, string 4 open, string 4 fret 2, string 3 open, string 3 fret 2, string 2 open, string 2 fret 3, and string 1 open and string 1 fret 3. And that pattern is just this. They're the notes that I played. That's vertically going down or up. If we do that on one string, those very same notes are E, G. Notice the skip here. I'm skipping to 3, and then 2. That's A, the 4th. Skip 2, 5th, and then skip 3 from this 5th to the 7th, and then 2 to come to the E. Those things will start to sink in with you as you start to play around with this, because just those patterns will help you without thinking of the notes, except the root note. You want to always be oriented toward the root note. As you get better, you'll be oriented toward more notes that fall out from these patterns, and you will start to just know what notes you're playing and where they are. It'll be really helpful for you to navigate the fretboard. So let's look at the E minor scale, this E minor chord, and this. That E minor pentatonic scale, just want to get that into your head, the sound of that, how all those pieces fit together. And we note that there are 3 E's in this vicinity, from 3rd fret on up to open. There are 3 E's. String 6 open naturally, string 1 open naturally, and string 4 fret 2. So what I'm going to do is, instead of thinking about patterns, I'm just going to go with this one pattern, which is skip a 3, 2, you say, well, you moved that back. Well, I moved it back because that string, between string 3 and string 2, there's always that little problem of where we have to push everything back as we're moving down, or forward as we're moving up. So here's this pattern. Now listen. And you hear it's the very same thing, just an octave higher. Hear that? The pattern? It's the very same thing. Skip 3, then skip 2, then skip 2. And I've played, when I do that, I've played. And to carry the entire pattern down, I would have 2 below this. In other words, I would have this. And end up on this A note. So I'm playing the very same notes, I'm just playing them as I go down to higher notes. So let's find all the E's along here and just apply that pattern. And this will force you to learn what I've been telling you to learn. And the next E that you would find is down here at string 2 fret 5, which you know also from all the blues stuff that we've been doing. So you have that same pattern. I put my index finger at string 2 fret 5, my pinky at string 2 fret 8, and that's an E and a G, and then I put my index finger down to continue that pattern. I just had 3, now I'm going to have 2, and I'm going to have 2 after that and 2 after that, but I run out of strings, as you notice. But we'll have to recapitulate that up here. So I go. That's as much of that scale as I can get going down. But the next E, we have another E here at string 5 fret 7. That's an E note, and I hope you validate all this. You can do that pretty quickly once you once you get going. So, and you should get going. So I have an E here. I have 3. I skip 3. That's the pattern. I go to 2, skip 2, then 2. Now, because it's string 2, I got to move it back. 2. Excuse me. And then I would pick up 3. It goes to 3 again. Excuse me. Sorry, I had. And then I move back to fret 7 and skip 3 and end up on this D note, which is the 7th in that in the scale, the flatted 7th. And I end up on this D note, but I have, as you can hear, which is same thing, just that's an octave higher. So that's another E. Then I have another E down here. Take my word for it. And figure it out. String 3 at fret 9, I have an E, and I'm going to apply the same pattern. There's that 3, so I'm skipping 1, 2, 3, and then I come down to string 2, move it back because it's string 2, and that's another octave of that E minor pentatonic scale right there. So you have the very same thing you do up here, but it's tougher to play. These where the open strings are not your friend when you start playing lead. Then I have an E, obviously down here, as you all well know, because that is an octave away. See the double dots there. And so I have the same pattern down here now. The same pattern that I had up here. So there, all the E's for the first 12, and you have it down here, but obviously you've got nowhere to go if you're just playing down. But let's look at another really important thing. It's these skips of 3. You'll notice that the root to the 3rd, that's one of our skips of 3. And there's one other skip of 3, and that's from the 5th to the flat 7th. This B to D. Now, if you consider the fact that a very important fact that I've pointed out in other things and other lessons, but now it really comes to roost where it's very useful, is that on these, at least these bass notes, for the moment, let's leave it to that because things change when you get down on string 3 and 3-2 at that interface. But right here, you have the root, that's an E, I'm at string 4, fret 2, and string 4, there's my skip of 3, 1, 2, 3. At that point, I'm playing E and then G, E, G. That's the string open, string 6 open to fret 3. That's E to G on this next octave. But right above that is the 5th. Remember, the 5th is always right above any of these notes here on string 6, 5, or 4. Right here, for instance, I have I'm holding down a D note. If I go to the note right above that D note at string 5, fret 5, the note at string 6, fret 5 is an A. That's the 5th in the key of D. And you can check that all along here. It's always the 5th above, the string above, right above at that fret is always the 5th. But remember, at the 5th, we have another 3. So I know when I play this, that right above it is the 5th, and that's going to be another skip of 3. So I'm going to have this. Excuse me. I'm going to come down here, and this is going to work in this little. Hear it? I just went to the 5th note, the 5th string, and had this 3 stretch here, the same as I do. It's always going to be above. It's always going to mirror what you have above. So if I start with this, and then above this, the next rule is that above that is going to always be 2. So a skip of 2, in other words. So I'm going to have this. Excuse me. And what I just, see, 2. And what I just played there is the second position. So that's how that second position comes about. You can figure that out without knowing the second position, just by knowing that above this root note on the next fret up, until you get down to string 2, on the next fret up is another stretch of 3, and that will start to form these other formations, these other patterns for you. If you come down here to E, for instance, right here, E, I have this. And again, starting, have E, I go 3 down here, and that's the start of my little pattern. That's the A minor or the E minor pentatonic right there. But I also, up here, these 2 notes are part of that. So if I go, and you can hear that all fits into the minor pentatonic. And all I'm using is the fact that above this stretch, which is always going to be 3, that I have the next string up is going to be a stretch of 3 right above it, unless you're down at strings 2 and 3. I'll get to that in a subsequent lesson. Now the other thing that's interesting to note is that this, wherever this E is, the note 2 away from it is the 7th. That's right in front of it. Right here. So if I have this D, or excuse me, right here I have an E, I also note that this note 2 up ahead of this E note is the 7th. So that's going to be part of the scale that I can use. So I can do, see how that fits in? That would be the note down here. Same note. And I know that this other note will also be the part of the scale. The string above it, at those same 2 frets, will be part of the scale. So I had to have so I can play around with all of those little so that's just some stuff to fool around, just orientation stuff. We'll break down each one of these and show how it emerges with a pattern, and also show what chord it's associated with, because each position that I showed ties in perfectly with a chord that, and those chords will be a C, an A, and a G, and a D, and an E. The chords up here. You move those down here and you end up with something that approximates that chord with an E minor shape, E minor pentatonic shape around it. Okay, so I hope we'll cover this in class and in more detail. But I think you'll like it. It's a really good way to understand those patterns instead of memorizing the patterns. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.